What's up, guys? This is Dr. Andy with y'all with my buddy James Gillespie. What's up, James?
Just living again, like last
Living
time.
life.
Yeah.
Nice, man. What are we talking about for this first this episode here?
Knees, not knees over toes, knees without toes, toes and some knees. And I think not going into Ben Patrick stuff too much, but talking about both science behind knee health and application of knee health.
I like it. I like it, man. So similar, I think, to what we did last time. What's There's a myth, or there used to be, I guess,
Mhm.
what we were taught when growing up, right? That having your knees travel over your toes was a no-go.
Yeah, 86 it, blow it up, Hiroshima that
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, get out of
Hiroshima.
there. Get out of there. No. No, no, you're not allowed to let your knees track over your toes. Can't do it. It's bad.
We've seen and so what you said, man, Ben Patrick, right? You kind of blew that whole myth out of the water. So we don't want to go too much into his stuff, but as far as my clinical aspect of treating knees, in particular with chiropractic and exercise, and then your relevancy as far as doing a lot of the stuff and how it feels. So we'll start there with kind of your quick journey insight, from you potentially not doing a whole lot of specific work for getting your knees over your toes, and then you've implemented more stuff into your routine. How's that been for you as far as feeling, looks wise, etc.?
Yeah, I would say knees, ankles, and shins were a problem when I was doing cross country running. I wasn't doing any knee loading at all, no heel elevated anything. I actually wasn't even strengthening my feet. I was wearing tiny toe box shoes, so my toes were coming in for miles and miles and miles and miles. And it's interesting because for a long time, I mean, even in football, it's like, hey, butt back and down, shin angle should be vertical, knee should not be over toe. If your knees are going over your toes, you're not sitting back enough. Well, I don't know if you've tried to back squat 400 pounds with just your butt back and your shin angle vertical, but it doesn't work.
Without a
And
box.
yeah, with nothing to sit on, no bench, no nothing. So it's one of those things that I was taught from a very young age, and I was developmental, not elementary school because I didn't lift weights then, but middle school, like going machines, dumbbell, kettlebells, up into then high school where we did Olympic weightlifting, which was more like, hey, let's hang power clean, but throw my pelvis through the front door and try to get that bar up somehow. I wasn't really exposed to necessarily proper technique there. And then so for a long time, including while I was running cross country post football, I did not let my knees travel over my toes intentionally. And when I was in the gym, I avoided it completely.
Were you told to avoid it, or was that just an instinctual?
No, it was not instinctual because when you walk upstairs, your knee travels over your toe. When you jump up on a box, your knee travels over your toe. When you spring off anything, your knee travels over your toe. But it was something that was said to me like when you have weight on your back, when you have weight in your hands, when you have weight on your chest, you do not let that happen because that's dangerous. But it was very alarmist. And it was not something that we ever had justification for, other than, hey, there's this study at this point 30 years ago that said that you should not have your knees over your toes. That's all we had to go on. And, I'm a young athlete at that time, looking at my strength and conditioning coach to be the one that did all the research, to write all the programming, to know what the heck we needed to do, dude. I was like 16 years old. I'm not gonna take the time to do all that while I'm trying to pick up women at the local prom and also at the soccer games. Like, I'm not gonna do research on that. I didn't even think that was a problem.
I'm glad we had the same hobbies when we were 16 years old.
Yeah, man.
Prom and soccer games, picking up
Yeah,
girls.
sex, drugs, and rock and roll for me.
How old are we?
Well, right now, I'm not even 30 for me.
Touche. But yeah,
Um, but
no,
yeah,
just
in
messing.
in high school, definitely had really no idea about knee health, and really didn't even lean into anything until we connected, probably heavier. You and I.
Yeah. I mean, I have vivid memories of. I think it was my. I call her my second mom
Mhm.
growing up. But she worked for the YMCA, really smart woman. But she told me, because when I was getting into CrossFit for the first time when I was 20 years old, and I was exposed to my real first like professional way to train, so to speak, because we never really had a trainer when I played sports, right? Fun fact, I didn't know that you were a cross country runner, but now that you say that, I'm like, you do have some Giselle looking legs, so
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she told me, she's like, you don't want your knees to go over your toes, like that's not healthy for them. And so my limited knowledge at the time from my L1, I think, and maybe a few other specialty certs within CrossFit, I didn't have much to go on, but something about it just seemed kind of wrong, but I couldn't communicate that. So let's dive into like some of the clinical stuff. Is that cool with you? As far as just
Go ahead.
why that's kind of important.
Yeah,
So
break the myth. Break the myth. Because
yeah,
I think a lot of people, if you haven't been familiar with knees over toes guy or some of these other movement specialists, I guess you could say on Instagram, YouTube, or what have you, that are breaking that belief and showing you how to do that. I mean, people are still in there like, oh, that's dangerous. People are not plugged into the education or plugged into the media around it. They still think it's dangerous to today, right?
yeah,
2023.
yeah. And mind you, like this, we're gonna go like kind of general into this topic, just kind of keep it short and concise. But so the old adage, like if you don't use it, you lose it, holds very true for. I can't think of one thing that it doesn't hold true to, at least in anatomy and physiology, right, of our own bodies. So, first and foremost, Ben Patrick talks a lot about full range of motion, and I know he gets a lot of his stuff from the late Charles Poliquin, and who was known as like kind of the guru of strength and conditioning. So if you haven't read his books, dive into those things because they are chock full of a lot of information. But essentially, so the knee joint in particular, so it's primarily just works in one plane, the sagittal plane. So like flexion extension. There's a minute amount of rotation. And usually if you do have rotation, it's not meant to be loaded. So when I mean like loaded, I mean like where the foot is grounded, what's called the closed chain, with weight and then rotated. That's when a lot of people get, tears of some sort of soft tissue, right? A lot of times it's meniscus, worst case scenario is ACL, PCL, LCL, MCL, some oblique ligaments. But essentially it's not really meant to do a whole lot of rotation. It's there to help lock the quad out on extension with the tibia sitting on the femur, but it's primarily a flexion extension, so a hinge joint. Now, in athletics, you see a lot of that. So running, right? Not a whole lot as far as grounding or closed chain flexion, but certainly open chain. What I mean by that is like, James, you're a runner, so when you're pulling your heel towards your butt in the air, the foot's not attached to anything, you're reaching pretty close to full maximal knee flexion. And then you go to stride out, that's pretty close, if not near maximal knee extension. So you're working through that range of motion volitionally, which means that your muscles are going to be primarily doing that act. In squatting, let's just take the basic air squat. Okay. Your shins do have to remain somewhat vertical. Now that depends on the type of squat that you do, but in air squat, your shins relatively can stay nice and vertical because you don't have any weight on your body, so you can balance a little bit better, but your knees should go over your toes. Now, how much depends on your flexibility, right? It depends on your leverage points of where you want to kind of emphasize your tissue working. So if your knees go over your toes more, it's going to be more quadricep dominant, just due to the straight biomechanics of the tibia being more perpendicular to gravity.
Yeah. Okay. And so break that down even more, layman's. Where's the tibia? What is the tibia? Why does it matter to people that aren't coaches?
Aren't coaches? Okay. So if you ever watched soccer, played soccer, and you put the soccer pads on, those soccer pads on your shins.
Shin guards?
Yeah. Shin guards. There you go. Perfect. There you go, James. So shin guards, that bone in the front there is your tibia.
Okay.
So it's the space between your ankle and your knee, or the bone, I should say. The fibula is the outside bone of that. So there's two bones in your shin. The fibula is primarily there to help kind of make up the ankle joint and stabilize it. And so, remind me where I was, James.
You were just saying, the tibia needs to, your.
Oh, yeah. So in the squat, right? If your tibia, which is the bone between your knee and your ankle, right, if the more perpendicular to gravity or parallel to the floor in an air squat, the more quadricep you're gonna kind of develop. And the best way to kind of see this in real time for yourself is what are called sissy squats. where you go up on the balls of your foot and you push your knees out. So you go down into what looks like the worst squat imaginable. You push your knees forward, you sink down, you lean back a little bit, almost to kind of look like you're doing a lazy boy type move. You'll feel your quads immediately engage at the very bottom. You won't feel too much of hamstrings or glutes at all, and that's kind of the point. You're putting a lot of your emphasis on your quads, and then you extend your knees back up. Versus, like you said earlier, James, sitting back to a box in a box squat or a back squat where your shins primarily remain more vertical. So two different movements attacking two, I guess, proportions of muscles, one being more posterior chain, so glute, hamstring, right? Erector spinae muscles, which is your back muscles, and then the other being more quad dominant. So you should train both, right? There's no one exact perfect way to squat, right? Both you and I know this. Okay, if there was, we'd be doing it, right? Everyone would be. In the clinical setting for that, why that's so important, because some people that say, James, they walk upstairs, they walk downstairs, right? Or even if they just get up and down from a seated position, or if they just walk, they're like, my knee hurts, right? So people have a tendency to kind of shy away from pain. And there's a difference between pain and being injured, in my clinical opinion. And so pain is a perception that we have that's made in the brain. Okay, so James, if you have a pain in your shoulder, right, in order for you to feel that pain, the nervous system has to transmit that signal from where it's coming from up into the cortex of the brain. Okay, with the knee, if the brain has been programmed to think that this knee joint is not safe to move, then it basically has PTSD. So every time you move it in a particular position that it's been used to not moving, then you're going to have either a stiffness, pain. That pain can be different. It can be sharp. It can be dull. It can be achy. It can be deep. It can be superficial. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do that. Now, I'm not proposing that people don't listen to their bodies, but that's why it's important to kind of have someone who knows what they're talking about and knows what something should feel like. Whether that be a coach, medical practitioner, whoever it is. Now, people that have stiff joints, stiff knee joints, right? A lot of that could be scar tissue. If you don't use it, like I said, your body's constantly gonna be laying down scar tissue. So, and you moving it, whether it be through passive stretching, active range of motion, through exercises, weighted or unweighted, right? That's gonna tear up some of that scar tissue. So that's probably gonna be painful if you haven't done that in a while. But physiologically, you're gonna be pumping a shit ton more blood flow through that area, right? So as a chiropractor, I believe that the nervous system is, the I hate to say the most important system in the body, because I think they all blend in together without all of them. The body's not exactly optimal. So, but I believe that the nervous system initiates the healing process, then blood takes over and allows tissues to heal. So if you run a tissue through a full range of motion, such as the knee joint, actively, right, you're getting a shit ton of electricity going through there. That's going to turn on different types of primary motor units. You're also going to get blood flow going in, blood flow coming out, which can be a cause of the soreness. And then lymphatic is huge. I don't think lymphatic and fascia gets enough attention. But a lot of people that have swelling in joints, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You have fluid there that's not getting pushed back to the heart. So that's either can be capillary blood flow or lymph drainage. The best way that we know how to do that, right, from a holistic standpoint, okay, safely, is through actual exercise where you run that joint through the biggest range of motion possible. And Ben Patrick harps on that. Charles Poliquin harps on that. I think Doug Brignoli harps on that. These are strength and conditioning coaches. And it makes logical sense. It's almost so simple that you would think it shouldn't work. And just I think a quick story, James, we were up at CrossFit Brookhaven and I was coaching. I don't know if you were there. I think it was one of the 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. classes that I was doing, but one of the members there that you know really well, he's a goofball, super strong. But he was warming up and he came over to me and said, hey, my knee kind of hurts when I do this. I just had him do, I think, like 10 60 squats, I think, or maybe cyclist squats. I forget whatever I had him do, but just body weight. And he did a couple rounds of 10 included into the warm up, and he comes over afterwards. It's like, dude, my knee feels so much better. Now, am I the greatest coach of all time? Yes. No, I'm just messing. No, but it was just super simple, right? Like, he could have had something maybe else going on there, but he's a pretty healthy individual. He's in there every day working hard. So I'm like, all right, well, this probably isn't some super complicated underlying pathology. Let me just have you prime the knee up a little bit, right? And so we just prime the knee up, running him through a heavy range of motion, low range of motion of the knee. Boom, he was good to go. Is that the case for every time? No, but I don't try to overcomplicate things if I don't have to.
Yeah. Maybe it's not the case for every time, but it is an easy way to start. Low barrier to entry, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. This is going to take 3.5 minutes. Can we at least eliminate that it's maybe just you're a little creaky today, right? You may be a little tight, a little sore, don't have as much blood flow as you need. Well, we can roll that out in about 4 minutes.
Yeah.
We can look at something different after that.
Yeah, 100%. And that doesn't mean to say, all this conversation doesn't mean that, like, hey, some of these other modalities don't work. Foam rolling, stretching, I think those are fantastic. They all play a different role in bringing somebody's health back into a joint, such as the knee joint like this. But I mean, what's better than being able to restore blood flow, lymph flow, stimulation to a muscle, get it stronger, and improve its range of motion? I mean, dude, if there's one thing that can do that, sign me up. I don't have to do an exercise, then stretch, then foam roll. If I can kill 3 birds with one stone, why not do it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, if anyone's to hear this, so they have a little bit of the problem that we're talking about here, right? The commonly held belief by many people that are not in industry that this is the way to go. And something I think that people may not necessarily hear in CrossFit specifically, but if you're in another person's gym that's a spinoff, a cross training, a CrossFit Light, a whatever, cross lifting, like whatever these people want to call it, so that they're not using a trademark because they're not affiliated. A lot of individuals, and I think this is an idea that is held, that literally holds, a lot of people, not the other way around. I don't think people hold this idea. I think the idea holds the people because they haven't done continuing education. These individuals that are uttering that, hey, knees can't travel over toes, are the same people that are uttering probably other things that maybe at some point were held as common truths, but have been dispelled. The same way that if you look at certain people in the obesity world, right? PhDs, MDs, etc., that held certain beliefs about carbs and carb intake and its relationship, right? Low carb or high carb, its relationship with obesity. The majority of them, except for a few that are not around anymore that wrote books and dedicated their life to it, the majority of everyone else has gone a different direction to not correlate, right, the high carbs with obesity immediately, regardless of propaganda. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone at some point wasn't on that train at first glance. It does mean that the people that are continuing education, that are reading more meta-analyses, reading more peer-reviewed journals, reading more literature as it comes out, and then discerning for themselves what's fact, what's bias, what's etc., are probably going to be in a better position to help you. Okay. And I can tell you this, your level 1 or level 2 CrossFit coach is not doing that. Period. End of story. You need a weekend to get there, right? Your gym owner, on very rare occasion, is doing that. Maybe. Usually those people are CSCS, or they have a background in exercise physiology, or they're a DR of some sort, right? So whether that be PhD, DC, that be DPT, or something of that nature, they're credentialed and they have CEUs, right? Continuing education that you have to keep doing to stay relevant. So I think that it's definitely beneficial to look at application of these types of things and testing a little bit of these myths. And you can find probably 3-to-1 or 10-to-1 videos anti stopping knees over toes versus knees over toes, right? Like you can find the literature that supports what you're talking about, but you got to open your eyes. You can't just say, hey, my coach Jimmy over there, I've been training with him for 3 years because he says this, it's truth.
Well, I think like, so that's a good point, man. I mean, we both watched, knees over toe guy, Ben Patrick, his stuff, and just even if you So I first found his stuff, I think either it was after chiropractic school. But anyway, even if you don't have a background in any human science whatsoever, and you just hear his story, the dude's had multiple knee surgeries. I don't even know about replacements, but certainly surgeries. And he was a youngster. He was like a late teen, early 20s. And he'll talk better about his story, obviously. But he rehabbed him back himself. I mean, so to me, like
To
that's,
dunk.
yeah, to dunk. Right, right. And so, and like the stuff when you just watch it, when you listen to it and you read it, it just makes sense. Like for me, I don't need to read 10 meta-analyses to understand or to finally be like, you know what, that guy was right. I mean, I'm watching it in real time. Well, I'm watching it, on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like that's enough for me personally to just kind of dig into it more, right? With the belief that like there's something here because we're all humans, and I get it that there's differences. You can go into all that nonsense, but you can always find what you're looking for. If you're looking for a critique, you're going to find it, right? But people like to put a lot of stuff on genetics, and that does play a part. I'm not going to say because I don't know the percentage in which genetics plays a part in almost anything, because I don't think anyone does, but it does play a part. But you can't tell me that Ben Patrick is this genetic freak, that he had such shitty knees, but yet was somehow able to kind of do the almost complete opposite, where now he's dunking. Like to me, that's just that doesn't add up. For like, oh, it's only him, and his stuff is wrong because it only works for the minute. Is my 60 something year old mom ever gonna dunk? No, probably not. But you know what? Could she have when she was younger? I mean, I don't know. She's not the most athletic. I love her. Love you, Kathy, but she tries really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the point being is like you can be Ben Patrick where he wants to be a really good basketball player because that's what his passion was. So he wants to dunk and play well and keep his knees healthy so he can keep playing that sport. My mom, I just want her to be able to get out and do stuff that she loves, hiking, walking up and down stairs. I want her to. So many people want uh, to live a longer, healthier life, right? Vitalistic life. I want that for people that don't really care about accolades in the gym, but just want to get up off the fucking couch,
Yeah.
literally,
Mm-hmm.
or get out of bed. And so, with these little things that are free, right? It's your body. You can do whatever it is that you want with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? If more people can be exposed to, I understand that people have their truths, or the people have their beliefs that are truths. Like, don't get your knees over your toes. I understand that that's still out there and a thing, but if more people can kind of just put these concepts together, right? Well, wait, if my knee can go to full flexion and extension, shouldn't that mean my wrist should? Shouldn't that mean my fingers, my elbows, my shoulders? Even though the shoulder's a different joint, but it all works the same, like full range of motion. Work it how it was made.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could do a lot of good in our society as far as just not prolonging people's lives, but giving them better prolonged lives.
Yeah, I think that's fact. So anyone that's listening to this that wants to get healthier knees, 3 things that they should do that they can do without any equipment. What are they?
Perfect. First one, walk backwards.
How long?
So the general rule of thumb that I give people is like you want to walk backwards a quarter of however long you walked forward. So let's say you go out for a walk and you walk a mile forwards, right? Just hit 400 meters backwards.
Okay. So a quarter. Okay. Number 2.
Mm-hmm. What are called Patrick step ups.
Okay. Break it down, layman's terms.
Okay. So if you've ever walked down steps,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Once or
it's
twice.
basically once or twice in your
Yeah.
lifetime.
Ever.
Okay, good. Yeah. So basically, you're going to be flat-footed,
Okay.
standing on a step,
Okay.
imitating like you're walking down to
Mm-hmm.
to put your heel on the next step down. Okay.
Okay.
So your flat knee, your flat foot that's on the step currently, with your other foot off the ground,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit in front of you. You're going to drive your knee, the knee of the foot that's planted, forward
Mm-hmm.
until you feel your quadricep muscle, which is the muscle on the front of your thigh, engage. Tap the ground with your heel, and then you'll stand back up.
Okay. So your weight will stay in the foot that's anchored on the ground that's flat.
Yes.
and you'll lower yourself almost like a modified pistol without sending your butt back, like going
Yep.
straight up and down.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
number 2. What's number 3?
As far as no equipment goes,
Yeah, zero equipment, dude. We got to make this accessible to everyone.
it's all good. So a knees over toe, excuse me, a knees over toe split squat.
Okay,
So
meaning
that, all right. So you're going to be in a lunge position, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back.
knee on the ground, back knee on the ground, or no?
Not yet. We're standing.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're standing. So yep. So feet are just split like in a lunge position at the top
Mhm.
position. So
Okay.
without moving your feet, you're going to keep your torso tall, which is torso is everything above the waist.
Mhm.
Keep that tall. Don't lean forward. You're going to try and bend that front knee as far forward out over your toe.
Okay.
So in a typical lunge, right, you normally go straight down,
Mhm.
tap your knee, come right back up. In this knees over toe split squat, keeping your torso tall, but you're pushing your front knee out as far over your toe as
Gotcha.
possible. And you can keep your heel flat,
Mhm.
or you can let your heel rise up so you go on the ball of your foot.
Okay.
The goal here is to keep your back knee off the ground
Okay.
and try to cover up your front calf
Mhm.
with your front leg hamstring to achieve full knee flexion. Does that make sense?
Got it. How long is it going to take from someone that's sedentary to get to that point? That's a lot.
So what you can do to modify that, right, is you can elevate your front foot.
Okay, that makes it easier.
Yes, it does.
Why?
So basically, it takes the majority.
Layman's
It doesn't
terms.
layman's terms. So your weight distribution.
Okay.
Okay, you're not putting all your weight onto your front leg at that
Mm,
point. With it elevated, right, it takes it off that.
similar to how you can do like a bench supported pigeon stretch, right? You're taking your weight out, so you're sitting up higher. There's way less of your body weight on that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
same thing.
Yep.
Got it.
So yeah, and then you'll extend back up, and if your foot is elevated, depends on the height of the elevation.
Mhm.
But if you do have a high enough elevation to get the full range of motion, you may not get to full extension just based on your flexibility. So if that's you, we're like James, if your foot's up, like let's say 6 inches off the floor
Mhm.
or higher, you may not be able to get full extension of that front knee at the top, and that's not ideal. But I'd rather have you go into eccentric, which means controlled stretching of a muscle.
Mhm.
I'd rather get you that knee over the toe under load, meaning your
Mhm.
own body weight, as opposed to uh, reducing the amount of flexion and extension being fine. Because
Okay.
most people stand in extension all day,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
That's usually easy for
Yeah, that
people,
makes
so I want
sense.
them to get into flexion.
Okay, so those are the 3 things.
That's
And
it.
with the steps, we get it like a quarter of the amount that you're walking forward. With the Patrick step ups, right? How many on each side? About how many sets? Just for a beginner, like brand new, day one. Want to incorporate
Sure.
it.
Yeah, sure. So what I've usually diagnosed is I'll usually diagnose. What I usually recommend is 6 to 10 reps per side,
Okay,
right?
like
And if they if
two, three, 4 sets, or
yeah, usually 2 to 3.
okay,
Yep. And then
and then
within a given window of time, like try to do the 2 to 3 sets, all
almost
at
back to
once.
back. Yeah, like
Yeah.
left, right, left, right, left, right.
Yeah, because you do want to get somewhat of a burn.
Uh huh.
Okay. Lactic acid, hydrogen
Mm-hmm.
ion, kind of build up of blood flow in there. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially if it's been a while for them.
fair enough. And then the split squat's about the same, 6,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
pause at the
those.
end or no?
Are you say pause at the bottom position? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that.
One
Yep.
second.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to get too crazy, right?
Just enough where you're not using momentum to pop in and out. Like you're not popping
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good point because yeah, I don't necessarily want people who haven't done this.
to chill
Um,
at the bottom.
well, no, I mean they can chill at the bottom. That's probably better because I don't want the ballistic rebound.
Yeah.
Because if they have scar tissue in there, right? It's I don't think it'll necessarily do any damage,
It won't feel good though.
but it
People are
won't
gonna
feel
be
good.
people are gonna be not as willing to do it a second set because it's
That's
not gonna
right.
feel good.
That's
Try to
right.
spring
Yeah,
out.
and again too, like as Homo sapiens, we're built to go into extension at first, then crawl, then walk, then
Mhm.
run, then sprint, and play sports. So there's a progression with this. So like just like anything else, dude, you gotta. Too many people want to go fast because things are uncomfortable. If they suck at things, they want to just get it over with.
Yeah.
So learn to embrace like the uncomfortable, slow, feel your body.
Heck
Right?
yeah.
That's to me, that's always going to be better when you're starting something than flying through something.
Boom. Beautiful. We got 3 actionable items. We got the myth. We got the problem with the myth. We got the reasons why it doesn't make sense biomechanically, and we have solved the world's problems for your knees.
That's it.
Knees over toes guy, we're putting you out of business, and we'll cut there. Ben Patrick, you're awesome.